Yes, indeed. As you see on the ticker there, the breaking news, Nigeria, Lagos has recorded the first case of coronavirus. And guys, it was only yesterday that we did take a look at some of this in the light of that scare at the hospital in Ikeja, how the Lagos authorities had said, well, they had quarantined the person, taken him to the center that they set up for that. And they came up with the result and it was negative. The NCDC had also come up with, they said they had 11 cases, they tested them, they were all negative. But alas, yesterday, it broke, and so it said now it's official. But, you know, as though it was telepathy where the Senate, they were themselves dissatisfied with the federal government's efforts at ensuring that coronavirus is prevented from getting into the country. So they had a plenary yesterday, and Senator Robert Boniface told his colleagues that arrangements at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport to prevent COVID-19 from entering the country are severely inadequate. He said he wanted the authorities to properly screen visitors who are coming into the country. So they consequently mandated their Committee on Primary Health Care to work with the Ministry of Health and ensure thorough screening of travelers at all entry points. Now that was what he saw in Abuja. And then in Lagos, that's where this gentleman went through. So, of course, expected there'll be so many questions now concerning all of the measures that we have put in place. So now can you say those measures are not measuring up? Because you know how some of these things happen. Yes, the government said they put in place those efforts, but then you can now begin to do contact tracing. So you can imagine how do they screen. They have to review all those processes as a result of this. What it is. So they have to check all of those. You know, they have to see the flight that he came in. They have to get across to everyone who's on that flight and see what they know, how are they responding. They need to, they have to quarantine all those other persons on the flight, don't they?
They have to monitor them.
It's a procedure, actually. So not that anyone is trying to stigmatize anybody. Look, that's procedure in order for them to safeguard every other person. You don't know who were those who might have pushed trolleys for all of them. You know, hopefully they didn't suck up too much at the airport while they arrived. So it's so it is something that you know, the country has now got to deal with. We need to fold our sleeves and get down to work on this one. Yes, there'll be several briefings. Well, expectedly, the ministers, the ministries, nobody is speaking any calls this morning. So they've got to have something to say, I reckon, first before they speak to people. But so, ladies and gentlemen, it is here.
Wow. And I think we had something to learn from. This happened in Algeria, similar. The person, the index case in Algeria also was from Italy. So I expect that we'll have learned from that. Now, I'm not putting the blame at anybody's table, but I imagine that, you know, people at the airport were expecting someone from Asia. So, you know, you put your attention on Asia and someone from maybe China, South Korea, which have recorded high cases. But, you know, we could have learned from Algeria. Similar thing. Someone from Italy landed in the country and became the index case. But this is where we are right now. We have to deal with this. And I know the first response for a lot of people would naturally be to panic. It's understandable. But to be fair enough, that is not going to help anybody. That is not going to help. I mean, there are authorities in place. There's the Ministry of Health, there's the NCDC, and other health professionals that have been put in place. So panic is not the right approach to this for people in Lagos, for people that have families in Lagos. That's on one hand. And spreading false information. I mean, you'll go online now and see people saying different things. They are not authorities. The authorities to trust right now is the Ministry of Health, NCDC. If you don't find those information there, then don't go with it, because that is another thing that can make it much worse. Panic, spreading fake news. It's important for us to actually be watchful at this point. Let's let the authorities handle this. The best you can do is not panic, maintain hygiene, personal hygiene, respiratory hygiene. Don't forget to cough in that, you know, that elbow sleeve and some other things you have to do, but please, Nigerians should not panic. I understand that this is new. This was something we were really watchful of, and we were hoping it would not come, but it has come, and we need to handle this head on. We're waiting definitely to hear from the authorities. We'll be on this all through the day, and all through this period, you can trust Channels Television to give you all the angles. But that's where we stand right now. 55 countries have been affected so far all over the world. Nigeria has been added to that, sadly. But I believe that will overcome this. We did this with Ebola. Yes, they're not the same. They're different. This is a coronavirus. But then I believe that we'll overcome this.
Well, you know, just yesterday as Chamberlain began, we were talking about this. And I think there was something specific about all of these. I remember also that one of the few times we broached this topic with some of our guests said, look, this infection could come in through any of the entry ports into the country, through the water port, through the seaport, or through the land, borders. But that we would pay more attention to the airports because of course, you can't come through land borders from China and all of that. But then we're only paying attention to China and Asia. We didn't consider Europe, which was where the two index cases, Algeria and Nigeria, have happened now. I also remember that, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who is an air traffic controller and who said that, look, we're paying attention to arrival and departure. We're not paying attention to what's happening while airborne. She was telling us about the fact that some of the things that happen in the human body don't happen when normal human body, temperature, behavior is not the same when airborne, when in a compartment like the, aircraft. And that is also a possibility. That could also raise the possibility of infections of all of those other people, who are in the plane. Did he cough? Is it airborne? Is it just droplets? What if the droplets dry up? What happens to the virus at that time? Does it die or does it become airborne? All those conversations, we are not aware. I was saying, we were asking that doctor who came yesterday about this same matter, and here we are now. Well, yes, we are confident that we have been able to deal with this in the past, but the issues were raised over and over again about port health services. It's not that we don't have these arrangements, but how strong are they in being able to deal with these issues? And those are things that we need to really deal with. Just as Kade has said, we're going to be giving you all the information today. And throughout today on this station, you will learn how to protect yourself. If you don't have to go out, it's probably better you don't go out. However, just as Kade said, there is no need to panic whatsoever because we can say that government has got this. However, the concern of the Senate is really something that we need to pay attention to. So if the Senate has said that before, what are they saying now? Do not also forget that, at some point they had said, look, we don't want these people to come from China.
Not to worry. We'll talk about this as the program progresses, but don't forget there are some prevention tips, precautions that you just may need to apply while you can. You regularly and thoroughly wash your hands with soap and water and use alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Maintain at least 1.5 meters, about 5 feet distance between you and anyone who is persistently coughing. Don't forget that. People can cough, you can't cough, but if you notice persistent coughing, you just need to find how you can go about that. So sneezing, don't forget that part. It's very important, self-quarantine. It's very, very important. You'll be saving. You never can know how much impact, you will have when you self-quarantine if you notice any symptoms whatsoever. Not that people didn't go to work because you just come up with that excuse, And then ensure you have to also work towards all of this and ensure that people around you follow good respiratory hygiene and covering the mouth and noses with a handkerchief or tissue while sneezing or coughing. You can also sneeze or cough into your sleeve at the bent elbow, then dispose of the used tissue immediately. Stay indoors if you feel unwell with symptoms such as fever, cough, difficulty in breathing, and then you could always call health personnel. There'll be emergency health lines as you see there. Just contact any of those and then just read and look out for as much information as possible. Well, we did tell you how we started that Senate did look at this matter. Senator Boniface was not exactly happy with what he saw. Let's get some reactions from him.
Is that prevention is better than cure. When we landed in South Africa, we were not allowed to leave the aircraft for a good 30 minutes. officers of the medical corps of the South African Army came into the aircraft and screened everybody before we were allowed out of this aircraft. When I arrived yesterday at the Nnamdi Azikiwe airport, there was no screening. All we were given is a sheet of paper to indicate that whether we were sick, whether we had been to one country or the other, and how we'll be contacted in emergency. What are you contacted in emergency? How do you train me? How do you know whether I fall sick after I left the airport? So this is very frightening, Mr. President and the Secretary and Senators. Very frightening. And I think something has to be done to ensure that we do not give way to a situation which we will not be able to control. So, Mr. President, I hope that I'm making this observation for Nigerians to note and for the Ministry of Health to take adequate action. We should be screened before we get into the airport.
Let's take you through some of the dailies today. Let's see, who knows, I think they might have put to bed by the time that news broke. But take a look at Vanguard for a start. Nigeria at risk of coronavirus. NEC. This was after they had that meeting yesterday, way before that news came through. FG not doing enough. Senate, you also saw that in our opening sequence while we were at it, just in case if you did. And then the other writer here says, asks FG to quarantine travelers from China. Now they know it's not just going to be China. Incidentally, we're looking this way and we left our flanks. Do we leave our flanks open? Those will be questions that they will have to determine while reviewing the processes, because this is what has to happen ever since that ticker, the breaking news, came through. And then it's hitting the economy as well. Global economy, perhaps. Oil price drops $5 below 2020 budget benchmark. Whoa. So you can imagine the impact how this will have, even though, yes, no intention to spread panic on part of the media. The media will just report what they've seen and put a caveat there so that people can be careful while they go about their normal duties. So Nigeria at risk of coronavirus, NEC, and I still the new. Now it's official. It's here. So some of the other stories, they're following through from some stories that broke yesterday as well, or reported the previous day. 2023, El Rufai's power shifts to South comments raise dust. So there you go. Then just right beside that, gridlock. Reps move to probe alleged extortion at Lagos ports. Who knows what becomes of all of this. And then this, a state of the nation, Nigeria on the brink, eminent Nigerians. Yeah. So much just playing out here on the front page. Don't forget your Mr. and Mrs. talking about gold digger. Remember that phrase, don't you? Well, take a look at the back page of Vanguard now. Eto, Taribo, toughest defender I ever faced. Good to know. So, now that, Yobo is in the Eagles, so is it good? Well, Yobo, Taribo, fantastic defenders. Sure, we've had some great times in the past.
We still do, don't we?
Well, which defender is as tough as this lads now? I'm trying to remember.
Let's talk about strikers, maybe Gallo.
Let's build from the back.
Build from the back, how about Modella? Wow.
As our champions do.
Oh, nice one.
That's Vanguard this morning, guys.
Let's take a look at the Guardian newspaper and see how they reflect the goings-on. You see this one, Nigeria not prepared for coronavirus. Senate warns. Yes, you probably caught that earlier on. And you see riders, all suspected cases tested negative, says NCDC. But we know that that was yesterday before this breaking news. But hey, that's where we are right now. One has come out positive.
Yeah, even though I missed that on the back page of Vanguard, Spanish journalists test positive to coronavirus. So journalists, to be careful while you report
the stories.
And that raises concerns for the Olympics. But you know what, that will be on sports, I'm very sure, by 9 a.m. today. And you see more riders still on the front page of The Guardian. 4 laboratories set to diagnose COVID-19. Well, we've tested one of them, obviously, and they seem to be working. And more riders, Saudi Arabia suspends entry into kingdom. Is that something Nigeria might consider? Well, I doubt it. But that's how The Guardian captures the report about coronavirus yesterday before the news broke. Don't forget, a lot of them probably went to print before that news broke. And you see a picture right there on the front page showing, moments from the NEC meeting yesterday. On top of that, National Assembly probes alleged inflated 151 billion naira road contracts, capping monetary rates. It's on page 3, and you see this one. No rest until we get acceptable law for Amotekun, say Southwest Houses of Assembly speakers. Amotekun is not slowing down at all. And you see this sad one. Jilted Uber passenger jumps into Lagos Lagoon. Is there a trend here? Really? It's on page 10, really sad one. And 17 bandits, others killed in fresh Katsina attacks. FG urges religious leaders to unite against terrorism. More Boko Haram members surrender to army. You see, they had their wives and children in that one. Starts on the front page, continues on page 6. If you take a look at Guardian Sports, you see Edo athletes grumble over delay in camping for sports festival. Oof. But that's the Guardian this morning.
The Nigerian Tribune leads with security concern why Boko Haram now targets Christians. That's according to the federal government. Its story is on page 4. You may check the details on the inside pages. Of course, coronavirus is right there as well. Coronavirus scares the world. Saudi Arabia suspends entry for Umrah. Olympics threatened. Kade, I thought they knew you were going to say this. There are a number of riders. Nigerian Senate says no proactive measures in place. Wants visitors from China quarantined. A suspected Chinese patient tests negative in Lagos. That was yesterday. Of course, they went to bed early. So, Mask Line, CMA, CGM, MSC, others face $1.7 billion revenue loss, underscoring that it affects the economy. Now, this one concern some faithful. Pope Francis sick a day after supporting coronavirus sufferers. You may want to check out the details on the inside pages, pages 2 and 3 of the Nigerian Tribune. Trump puts VP Pence in charge of U.S. response team. Trump puts VP Pence in charge of U.S. response team.
Right. And you see that one right on top of it.
Oh, I missed that one. Iran VP infected. Oh, yes. Iran VP infected. Friday prayer, other activities cancelled. Oh, my God, this is really scaring the world, as the Nigerian Tribune says. Europa League match played indoors in Italy as virus spreads. All schools in Japan closed until April.
In England, they're going back and forth as to how they should approach it. Should they close schools or treat it on an individual basis? Who knows?
Well, they just one more on the Nigerian Tribune. Court nullifies impeachment of ex-Kogi Deputy Governor Achuba.
All right, take a look at the next one now. Blueprint newspaper and see what they lead with here today. 1.7 trillion naira intervention. NEC orders forensic audit of Disco's accounts. Company's performance dismal. Ascribed to governor. So, they broke, missed it, came up with this one. This is their big lead here this morning. So there were those who think that it's a matter of time, when, not if, they revisit this privatization of this Discos. So who knows? You may need to check that out as well. Yes, you've seen perhaps previously what's on at the bottom strip of Blueprint here. Boko Haram targeting Christians to provoke war. Ascribed to FG. So that briefing also came through yesterday. So that is Blueprint this morning.
Let's see what's making the news on the front page of a leadership newspaper. See how they reflect what's been happening. You see, NEC orders forensic audit of Discos. Yet again, reflects what we saw earlier. Approves Nasarawa Adamawa Plateau Livestock Transformation Plan. Explains drop in excess crude account. You can find all that on page 4. And you see, first case of coronavirus confirmed in Lagos. Well, leadership caught that. Apparently, they probably stayed a bit longer to see what's happening. And some other stories on the front page. Amotekun, Southwest states to present unified legal backing. Boko Haram remains decimated. FG insists. Whew. Right on top of the big story, police kill 17 bandits, recover, I think, 50, is that 50 cows or 80 cows in Katsina, as well as some other stories on the front page of a Leadership Friday. Well, it's the Daily Trust.
Yes, the Daily Trust newspaper is also talking about this one. Nigeria, Saudi Arabia hold Umrah over coronavirus. Suspected cases in Nigeria test negative. Iran suspends Friday prayers as VP tests positive. Vice President, that must be. And then, of course, right above the nameplate, Supreme Court will pay 60 million naira fine soon. Olanikpekun Babalola. Check the stories on the inside pages. Why terrorists are targeting Christians, according to the federal government. And 21 killed as police vigilante engaged bandits in Katsina. These are the stories making the round on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper.
So we'll expect the ministers of health, Minister of State for Health, NCDC, all of those agencies, well, Lagos, I think they'll be having a briefing much later today, so they need to all just wake up, get set to prepare your brief for the president. He will need some briefing, wouldn't he? At least if you can speak to journalists as of yet, you will need to brief Mr. President on some of these developments, and the country, of course, needs to know what is being done. How do they proceed with all of this? Well, we'll come back to you with a lot more in just a moment.